Coming up next, one of rock's definitive frontmen was the victim of a serial cheater. He was smitten by this seductress for sure, but she made his life a living hell on her path of destruction, so naturally, he got even by writing a song about it. Only he felt it was just a filler song. I mean, after all, he'd written in just a few minutes. In fact, he would say it was the fastest song he ever wrote. Part of the music was from a song that he'd written earlier, and he just played it backwards. In the end, it became his band's first major hit and one of his favorite songs ever. The story, very interesting, coming up on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember the B-sides of your favorite artists, even to this day, either on the 45 or the cassette singles, you're gonna love this channel. Instant memories from a world gone by, unfortunately. Make sure that you subscribe below, click the bell so that you're always in the know of our latest interviews and videos and stories. We also have a Patreon with new and exclusive content, including some upcoming specials, specifically a live event that I'm gonna be doing on the origins of Professor of Rock. Just click on the link below and make sure to check out our latest merch as well. So it's time for another helping of our show, Number One in Our Hearts. This is where we take a song that was so unbelievably great. We kind of rewrite history a little bit, giving it the coveted #1 slot for a day, at least in our hearts. These are songs that, for the most part, were hits and have since garnered even more acclaim years later than the songs that were at the #1 spot that week. Not always the case, but most of the time. This one is an easy one in my mind. Even a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame virtuoso can be seduced by a femme fatale.
You know down deep in your heart that in spite of anything I've done, I love you.
It definitely happened to the great Jeff Lynne. Betrayed and shattered, Jeff was the emotional victim of an evil woman, but he got the last laugh by using the emotional devastation that she inflicted upon him to inspire the creation of a song that catapulted him into global stardom. Jeff Lynne, you know, with his wowza afro and aviator sunglasses, was a striking rock icon that emerged in the 70s. Lynne was a leader of the post-Beatles generation when he assembled a bold theatrical ensemble known as ELO, the Electric Light Orchestra. And he lit the charts on fire with his colorful and eclectic songs. The artistic objective of ELO was to get away from the same old 3 guitars and drums outfit, and with a dynamic blend of classical music, progressive rock, and orchestral rhythm. Oh, Mr. Blue Sky, please tell us why you had to. Now, despite critics calling them dull and poking fun at their spaceship imagery, ELO pumped out the hits in the UK. But for some reason, success eluded them in America until they had a breakthrough with the ballad, Can't Get It Out of My Head. That went to #9 on the Billboard Hot 100 in early 1975. Can't get it out of my head. Now, although ELO was a hit machine in the UK with, I believe, 4 top 20 singles at that point, Can't Get It Out of My Head did not chart in the UK, in their country. The second coming of ELO in the UK and their consistent prominence in America from about 75 through 86, that began with the breakout of Evil Woman. Now, the lead single from the orchestra's 5th studio album, Face the Music, in 1975, that busted the top 10 in the US, also the UK, New Zealand, and Canada. Evil Woman was inspired by a real woman from Jeff Lynne's private life that, to borrow a classic rock term, dazed and confused ELO's front man. She was a woman that used his celebrity, cheated on him, and really played him for a fool. You made a fool of me. Jeff Lynne and his fellow musicians that constituted the Electric Light Orchestra spent most of the summer of '75 in Munich, Germany, working on the Face the Music album at the Musicland studio. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. The album was nearly finalized when Lynne took another listen to the completed tracks, and he felt something was missing. Lynne thought that they needed to come up with just one more track. They told the boys in the band to take the evening off, though, and, they could check out a local football match. This is while he stayed behind to work on composing that one more song for the record. Sitting on a bench in front of a piano, all by his lonesome, Jeff quickly conjured inspiration, reopening the wounds of profound pain and despair that was caused by the deceitful ex-lover. He condemned the perpetrator as an evil woman.
Evil woman, how you done me wrong. Now you try.
So in his first verse, Jeff wrote about the open road that leads nowhere. Jeff gave a tip of the hat to his heroes, the Beatles, with perhaps the song's most memorable lyric. There's a hole in my head where the rain comes in.
There's a hole in my head where the rain comes in.
Now that line, that was a reference to Fixing a Hole, Paul McCartney's search for identity among the crowd from Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Fixing a hole where the rain gets in.
In the second verse of Evil Woman, Jeff Lynne wrote, "A fool and his money soon go separate ways," revising the 16th century English saying that a fool and his money are soon parted. The idiom is actually a modification of Proverbs 21:20 in the King James Bible that has never lost its prophetic wisdom.
But a fool and his money soon go separate ways.
Ultimately, the song is a cautionary tale for unsuspecting prey, whom the evil woman is attempting to lure into her trap. Lynne exposed the evil woman for her immorality. "You destroyed all the virtues that the Lord gave you."
Destroyed all the virtues that the Lord gave you.
And he put her on notice by giving her a stern warning to get out of town. "You better get your face on board the very next train."
But you better get your face on board the very next train.
And very frustrated, very angry. The devastation of a bitter breakup, being wronged by someone that possessed your heart so deeply, is sadly a feeling that one never forgets. In a demonstration of his gifted lyricism, Lynne brilliantly expressed the lingering effects of his devastation in astonishingly short order. In about 30 minutes, Jeff finished Evil Woman, becoming one of the fastest tunes that he'd ever written at that point. It may have been intended to be merely a filler track, but when it was all said and done, Evil Woman was a career-defining achievement, a feat that is one of the best examples of how extraordinary Jeff Lynne truly is. As the producer of the Face the Music album, Jeff Lynne took new measures to develop a more complex yet more pop-accessible sound for the recording of Evil Woman. By adding female vocals from Ellie Greenwich, there were Susan Collins, Nancy O'Neill, and Marge Raymond. The quartet of supporting vocalists really accentuate the gotcha back karma of the haha woman and haha very nice to know. Those sections of that track, which really shape and enliven the catchy song. And of course, the backing vocals, they build intensity over the hey, 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 in the middle of the song, as well as in the chorus. Of course, ELO's string trio of Mick Kaminsky, Melvin Gale, and Hugh McDowell were creatively utilized on Evil Woman with some clever studio trickery from the always great Jeff Lynne, just a wizard. Evil Woman has two string sections that were actually recycled from the ELO song Nightider from the same album. It was already recorded before the band tackled Evil Woman. Lynne revealed that the two songs were done in the same key, so the transition of the string section from Nightider to Evil Woman, it really was a perfect fit. Check out the string arrangement of Nightider and then the instrumental bridge of Evil Woman and you're going to hear it. Hope you could catch it from that. Now, the opening chord sequence that Jeff Lynne conceived when his mates were at the football game was the foundation for the making of Evil Woman. The signature riff on the recording of Evil Woman, that was superbly executed by ELO's indispensable keyboardist Richard Tandy. Tandy's performance somehow captured a seemingly impossible combination of elegance and dramatic tension. middle section of Evil Woman, that features a compelling piano solo by Tandy, escorted by a string arrangement with an ascending melody that is quintessential Jeff Lynne and ELO magic. The other distinguishing component of Evil Woman that really made this song pop, it's the clavinet that Tandy performed in the chorus. It gave the track a really addicting, funky hook, arguably the most potent element of Evil Woman in my opinion. Of course, Stevie Wonder was the artist to popularize the clavinet when he used the electronically amplified clavichord for his masterpiece, Superstition. That was in 1972. An influence on many, of course, not the least of which was Jeff Lynne, who was really taking it all in and spitting it all out in an original fashion that really influenced so many around him, especially when he produced later in the 80s. It's interesting, though, Jeff Lynne could have turned Evil Woman into a vendetta to slander his ex-lover, but he has never divulged her identity. Surprised that it hasn't leaked in this inescapable internet age that we live in, but that's because Jeff, and really anyone else that knows the truth, has remained silent since the song was released. Amazingly, the machinations of the real Evil Woman had such an emotional impact on Jeff's life that they actually fueled inspiration for the composition of a few other ELO songs, chiefly the band's biggest song, Don't Bring Me Down, from 1979. Actually went to number 4 here in America. We covered it a few months back. You got me thinking that I'm wasting my time. Don't bring me down. Face the Music, that was released in September of 1975 by United Artists Records, and it was released in mid-November that same year in the United Kingdom by Jet Records. Now this time around, I said this a little bit before, but going into it a little bit more, ELO began to move away from the big classical orchestrated sound of their previous album El Dorado to the more middle-of-the-road catchy hooks that 70s radio would truly embrace. It really worked. It was the first ELO record to sell over 1 million copies. An interesting fact about the album, the band recorded it, like I said, at Musicland Studios in Munich, Germany on a recommendation from the members of Deep Purple. ELO had opened for Deep Purple in America on their North American tour, and they got to be friendly with one another, and they told them that Musicland Studios was a great place to record. It became a favorite for Jeff Lynne thereafter as the band recorded most of their next few albums there, and Jeff Lynne would gain a great respect and a really good working relationship with a sound engineer named Mac there. And of course, the album cover, that stands out as most of ELO's covers do. It's a pic of an electric chair with ELO spelled out as the grid above the chair, several grids. I don't know what you'd call them. I think they're called grids. As the scene continues on the back cover of the record sleeve, you have the members of the band with their faces pressed up against a glass panel. I'm sure they're watching the electrocution. Seems like it's already happened if you look at the front cover. And band member Richard Tandy, though, he's looking away. The urban legend is that he didn't like the idea, didn't want to participate. He was against the death penalty. I don't have a definitive answer behind that, though. I did some research. Again, there's a lot of urban legends from back in the day. This was an album cover that scared the hell out of me as a kid. My dad had the record. That's another great thing about vinyl coming back is the size of the cover art. I used to sit and just stare into the abyss of the great album covers while, of course, listening to the music and poring over the liner notes. Again, so happy that vinyl is making a comeback. Now my kids are doing that. Very proud. And another thing that stands out about this album is that the band at that point is comprised of Jeff Lynne on lead vocals, guitars, and of course he produced. Bev Bevan was on drums, percussion, spoken intro, backwards, backing vocals. There was also some backmasking that happened on several tracks. Richard Tandy, of course, piano, clavinet, Moog, guitar, Wurlitzer, electric piano, tack piano, and Kelly Grucut on vocals, bass, backing vocals, and he actually sang lead on Poker. Co-lead vocals on Nightider, and then Mick Kaminsky, violin, Hugh McDowell, cello, and Melvin Gale, cello. That's considered to be the classic lineup of ELO, and they would stay together for the better part of the next half decade. With the strength of Evil Woman and later Strange Music, which would hit number 14 in the Hot 100, the album started the radio domination of ELO through the rest of the 70s into the 80s, of course becoming one of the biggest bands of their time. When the reissue of the Face the Music album came out in 2006, we discovered an additional verse that Jeff Lynne had written for Evil Woman. I don't know if you guys got a copy of that, but the verse was discarded for the final mix of the original version, but it was included as a bonus track for that reissue.
And I'll tell you a story that'll make you smile.
Around 2008, Jeff Lynne recorded a solo version of Evil Woman that sounds very similar to the original. That reproduction features backup vocals by Jeff's daughter, Laura Lynne. In 2012, Lynne released a compilation of his own re-recordings of ELO hits titled Mr. Blue Sky, the very best of Electric Light Orchestra. The collection includes a slightly stripped-down version of Evil Woman. ELO songs have been placed in many films, such as 10538 Overture, that was an American Hustle, Showdown and Kingpin, and Living Thing in Boogie Nights. Evil Woman, of course, used a hilarious scene with Dr. Evil and Frau Farbizina in the third Austin Powers movie, Goldmember. It came out in 2002. Look, there are very few music composers that have transcended as many styles as Jeff Lynne. The exciting, polyphonic sound of the Electric Light Orchestra, the modern revitalization of roots rock as a member of the supergroup Traveling Wilburys,
Well, it's all right, even if they say you're wrong.
And his inspired production of milestone albums by Tom Petty, Brian Wilson, George Harrison, and Roy Orbison. He is a genius musician and producer. That's why I love to cover him on here. Every time that we do a feature that spotlights Jeff Lynne, I'm just more fascinated by that genius. Evil Woman is certainly one of his greatest, most enduring compositions that's still just as exhilarating as it was the first time that I heard it as just a little kid. I grew up on this music. My dad loved ELO. Of course, he was a huge Beatles fan, so why wouldn't he? Just amazing. By the way, the top 3 songs on the Billboard Hot 100 in late February of 1975, when ELO's Evil Woman peaked at number 10 for 2 weeks, they were You Sexy Thing by Hot Chocolate at number 3.
You sexy thing, you. I believe in miracles.
Theme from SWAT by Rhythm Heritage at number 2. And 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover by the great Paul Simon at number 1.
Struggle to be free, there must be 50 ways to leave your lover.
Now, Paul Simon would end up spending 3 weeks at number 1 for 50 Ways. It's a great song for sure. I'm just wondering, though, if we could take just one of those 3 weeks and give it to ELO for such a great song. Maybe you take it away from the theme from SWAT, put that at number 2. I'm negotiating here, but regardless, it will always be number 1 in our hearts. Leave us a comment about Evil Woman from Jeff Lynne and Electric Light Orchestra. What are your memories of this song and this album? What are your thoughts on the top songs, the top 3 of that week in 1975? What are your thoughts and feelings about Jeff Lynne as a producer and as a genius music maker? Let's have a great discussion below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe below so that you never miss our daily dose of nostalgia. Check out our other ELO videos. We do this through interview and story. Make sure to look us up on Patreon for even more content. Help us keep the music alive. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.